But I warn you, I mean, is the workshop find your inner golden goose slowly and painfully, or find the golden goose in the markets quickly and conveniently? And you know what people will be drawn to. I actually had a second version of that. Work 15 minutes a day in Forex and retire early, 90% success rate. Yeah, that's a lot of people going to sign up for that. Or spend 10, 15 years full of frustration, heartache and setbacks, and maybe you'll make it big. Maybe. Yeah, maybe I undersold it a little bit. But here's the essence. Imagine this chart here. This is from today. Imagine that was part of your repertoire. That repertoire, and I'm not saying that you need to buy a scented candle and place it in a dark room and learn to sit in cross-legged. I'm not. But I am saying, with as much sincerity in my voice and heart as I'm possibly able to muster, that you need to find dedicated alone time where you deeply think about what you would do in situations like that, and you see yourself actually doing it, implementing the trade without hesitation. This is the school run for today. And I would like to tell you the story about David Paul. It's a bit funny, but is again also a good memory to him. David Paul was asked to coach one of South Africa's very, very, very wealthiest diamond traders, the art of trading. And the way David Paul tells the story is that this guy, he was also a former rugby player, as is David Paul. He comes to the house, which again, according to David Paul, is a bit like the house that you see in that American series called Dynasty. It's big. And they sit down together, and David Paul outlines a strategy and saying, we're going to trade this strategy. And the guy, we'll call him John. John says, okay, sounds good. And they sit there and chit-chat, relive and reminisce the old rugby days, and then a setup comes. And they execute the trade, and voila, it's a winner. And John goes, wow, that feels good. And David Paul says, I was never in doubt. Good. Whether it's a few minutes later or half an hour later, a new setup comes up, identical. They execute the trade, but this time, it doesn't go so well. And so now, John is thinking, bearing in mind that this guy is one of the wealthiest people in South Africa, he's got a Learjet parked in the backyard that he transports diamonds up to Amsterdam, and he's trading £2 a point. They chat. David tries to talk his way through the obstacle that his gentleman is clearly experiencing after one winner and one loser. Warning, there's some foul language coming up. Just warning you, because I have to tell the story how David tells the story. He wouldn't be right otherwise. Another setup comes, and David says, there's the trigger. But John doesn't execute. And David says, no, execute. He said, no, I don't like it. And David, being David, going, don't be such a fucking pussy. Execute the trade. Now, John, as I said, was a former rugby player. And when you reach that kind of wealth in life, you don't take shit from nobody. So he turns to David and said, what did you fucking call me? Well, now that you ask, I called you a fucking pussy. John, being a man of few words but a lot of fist, whacks David Paul. David goes, what the? And David, being David, whacks him right back. And these two tomboys, they end up rolling on the floor. When the elderly lady of the family walks in and going, boys, what are you doing? They gain their composure. And after a peace pipe, David says to John, listen, John, sorry about the hitting. Oh, sorry. what you have to understand is that there is a transformative process going on in your mind right now. Right now, your mind wants to avoid the pain. And you experience pain on that second trade, so now you don't want to execute the third trade. But if you can somehow see your way through that third trade, and the fourth trade, and the fifth trade, and the sixth trade, and you take these trades irrespectively of the outcome, your mind will begin to process the uncertainty and accept the uncertainty. And by the time you get to around the 15th, 16th trade, you will no longer feel that hesitation, that trepidation. You will simply just learn to execute one trade after another. The outcome is no longer dependent on whether you feel joy or sadness. You will become a robot, a process robot, not an outcome-focused robot. And I am sorry about the language, but it lent itself to the story. And so the story goes that they carry on going through the trades over the days that come. And this diamond dealer actually becomes a rather adept gentleman of just following a process. And so if we begin to question whether we should take this trade or not, then it should just be there as a visualization exercise, one that I deploy myself as a tool. It could be this one, it could be many others that I have. And whether it's going to be a winner or loser is almost immaterial. In this case, it was a winning trade. But that's immaterial. What is material is, are you able to see this trade in your mind's eye and hold that discomfort and sit with that discomfort right here in the solar plexus area and hold that discomfort in your mind's eye? But I would like to finish off the evening with a story that fascinated me, and then we'll round this off, okay? Are you okay? You've been pretty bloody good. You've been here nearly 4 hours, you know that? That's quite amazing, and only one left.
We get after that.
Does practice makes perfect? No, I don't think practice makes perfect. I believe that practice makes permanent. So how do you train in trading? I want to tell you the story about these two gentlemen here. You may have heard it before. If so, I apologize, but I'll make it quick. This one here is Anders Ericsson. He's a professor at, I believe it's Princeton University, but the university is relevant. But what he is researching is human performance. And this gentleman here is Malcolm Gladwell. And he wrote a book called The Outliers. What's interesting about The Outliers was that he had at his central theme of the book a concept that Anders Ericsson had proposed, which was, if you want to be good at something, do it for 10,000 hours. So millions of people all over the world grab that, this is my calculator, grab that calculator, okay? All right, if I do this 5 hours a day, I will be an expert in July 2027. Cool. All right, I could do it 8 hours a day, and then I'll be an expert by 2025. It seemed pretty good to argue that in order to become an expert at something, you have to do it for 10,000 hours. However, I've now been driving for better part of 35 years of my life, and according to my ex-wife, I'm the worst driver in the world. I'm simply incapable of reverse parking, apparently, and when we were together, she used to say that when I reverse parked, she would call a taxi to transport herself from the car into the curb. I always thought that was a little bit insulting, but nevertheless also quite funny. So, clearly a proof that even though I've been driving for 10,000 hours, I wasn't actually a particularly good driver. What Anders Ericsson actually